everyone! Welcome back to my book nook. Amanda here. So today we're going to be doing our first book in our first massive series that we'll eventually end up doing. So today is Postmortem by Patricia Cornwell. It's the first book in the Scarpetta series. So it introduces you to what ends up being all of the main characters in the series. You have Scarpetta, who is the chief medical examiner for the Commonwealth of Virginia, Pete Marino, who is a detective, Benton Wesley, who is very little in this book but does become much more prominent in other books. He is an FBI agent, and Kay's niece, Lucy, who in this book is 10, and throughout the series you see her get older in age. So a real quick thing, Patricia Cornwell. She actually, before she started writing these books, worked as a police reporter, worked as a volunteer police officer, and actually worked in the Virginia medical examiner's office. So she actually uses a lot of actual information about these types of things in her books. This first one was published in 1990, so of course there's a couple of things in it that it isn't as relevant anymore because technology has changed and everything, such as when the DA is telling her we really don't need to worry about DNA because juries don't care about that. Nowadays, that's a really big part in a lot of cases. So the crime that they're working on with this, it is a serial rapist serial killer who the case is introduced with their fourth victim, and rapes them, he strangles them, and the only real evidence that they have is he's a non-secretor, which means they aren't able to figure out his blood type. And again, it's early DNA, so it takes a long time to get anything. It would take a long time to get anything else. So it doesn't give them a lot of stuff to work with. And the only other forensic evidence is at the places where he binds the women and when he strangles them, there's this glittery residue that they eventually find out reacts under black light. So they're working on trying to figure out what all happened, and one of the things that is a little off from reality is Kay does a lot of detective work. Like, she'll actually go and interview family members. They have Kay doing a little bit more actual police work than what you would really see a medical examiner doing. She's not just dealing with the bodies and forensic evidence off of the body. The other interesting thing that's going on while they're also working on this case is there has been information leaked to the press that the only place they would have gotten it is from the medical examiner's office. So it's this whole thing of, is there a leak in here, or was our security system, our computer systems hacked? One of the things with Lucy that we find out, she's kind of a computer prodigy. Like I said, she's 10 in this one, and when Kay asks her at one point, hey, did you do this just trying to figure out what to go on because I'm watching you while your mom is failing at being a mother? And Lucy's like, no, but I can show you how someone could have done this. Again, not something you would necessarily expect to see a 10-year-old able to do, so she's literally, like I said, a computer prodigy. Since this is a mystery one, I'm going to be doing a lot of this without serious in-depth spoilers in regards to everything. Later on, the only other real forensic evidence that we find out is the person who committed the crime has this disease called maple syrup urine disease, that when I first read this book, I thought it was something that they were completely making up. It is an actual disease, and it makes someone's urine and other secretions like sweat have a very sickly, sweet, almost maple syrup-like smell to it. It typically is only found in infants, but it can be something that develops later on in your life. And it was just like, okay, well, that is actually a thing. Well then. So some of the other things regarding this book that is really interesting, and when you look at it, it's kind of surprisingly progressive for its time. Like I said, it was written in the 90s. There are times in which Kay is talking about problems with police forces. Not at this moment talking about, say, police brutality like we have in reality, but also things of police who hyper-focus on a suspect to the exclusion of anything else, even if there's evidence being like, this person really may not have done what you're thinking they did. Or that typically, sometimes with leaks to the press, it might happen because you have a police officer that had a loose lip. During the case, you also have during this book, you have the 5th victim happen, who ties in Kay actually talking with one of the reporters, the reporter that had been getting all the leaked information, and because it's her sister who ends up getting killed. It's not a huge major spoiler. The other thing that was really, like I said, kind of progressive is during all of this, while trying to figure out how people were being picked up and everything, because 4 of the 5 at the end victims were white, and one of the victims was African American, which they're like, well, this is just kind of weird. This doesn't fall in line with everything else. Kay, again, doing police work, which you typically wouldn't see the medical examiner doing, had called the sister of the woman and gets called out by the sister when Kay asks if her sister spoke like she does, and the sister's like, oh wait, you mean speaks white? Which was really awesome seeing that happen in a book written in the 90s of a character getting called out for a microaggression, because you wouldn't necessarily typically expect to see that. So it was like I said, they had some pretty impressively progressive things in this book, which I think is kind of amazing doing a reread of it, because I read this book before a couple of times, and hey, it's been a while, and I had picked up one of the more recent ones I hadn't read yet, and it's like, oh, wow, there's stuff in here I'm not remembering. I need to reread these books from the beginning, which is why I decided to start doing this. So another thing that I'm going to talk about really quick is this is a minor character, well, a major character in this book. Ultimately in the series is more of a minor character. It's Kay's current love interest. He is the district attorney. His name is Billy Bolts. Yes, it sounds like a made-up name. That one of all of the names really does sound made up. And some of the more interpersonal type things you see is regards with that. The other people in the DA's office do not like Kay, and no one really knows that Kay and the DA are in a relationship, because even though Kay is very good at not breaking any sorts of protocols, it's just the whole thing of, well, why is the medical examiner with the DA? She's just going to always side with them. So they're keeping this all under wraps. Lucy also has a lot of issues at the beginning with this because, like I said, her mother's kind of a worthless mother. Has gone through a lot of guys, and anytime her mother's dating a guy, Lucy's not important anymore. The guy is important. To the fact that she had shipped Lucy to stay with Kay, was supposed to be bringing her back, but had broken up with a boyfriend, gotten together with a new guy, and was running off to Florida to marry this guy. So she just was like, hey Kay, you keep her for a little bit longer while I get married and go on a honeymoon with this guy I just met. Lucy's mother's a piece of work. That's an ongoing thing throughout other books, so you'll hear this one more commonly. But yeah, so really decent little book. I say little, but it's over 300 pages. It feels little because I'm reading it as a paperback. And it reminded me how much I really did enjoy reading the Scarpetta book, so I'm gonna probably quite enjoy going through the rest of the series. I'd say it's probably a good 8 out of 10 for it. In regards to the series, it does a really good job of introducing pretty much the majority of your main characters, even if it is one that starts off as a minor character in this. And it gives you a lot of detail, not just in regards to who these characters are, but how they interact with each other. that, like, Kay and Pete, since Pete is the ongoing police officer through this, he gets on her nerves frequently, but, and he drives her up a wall, but they have a decently well-working relationship. Lucy, even though Kay isn't really her mom, Lucy sees her much more as a mom than she sees her own mother. So just lots of interactions as for a really nice intro book for the series, and most of the books do work as a standalone, at least in the beginning, but as you get further into the series, it does start, there are a few books that there's an overriding antagonist that you kind of do need to have a little bit more in-depth knowledge of, and those books may lose some of that standalone ability. So yeah, 8 out of 10, I really enjoyed it. I have a feeling I'm going to really enjoy doing the rest of going through this book series and doing the reviews for you all here, and yeah. So, shorter video this time, especially since, like I said, I'm still trying to play when it comes to one of these mystery books, how in-depth of a description I can get into it without going too spoilery. So some of these more mystery-based ones might be a little more erratic on how long they are. Some might be longer, some may not. It's going to depend on what else I might be talking about in regards to the book other than the mystery itself. So I enjoyed it. I recommend it. I recommend, honestly, the whole series. I'm going to state that now, is that I do recommend the whole series. I know that still going, even though I'm starting off with this first one, I remember from what I know of these that I do recommend this whole series. And yeah, I hope to see you next time. So like the video, subscribe so you get other ones, especially, like I said, this is going to be a series that will have its own playlist and everything. Ring the bell for notifications, and I'll see you next time. Bye everyone.